Good day everybody, my name is Awesomecrunch and welcome back to another long-awaited Subnautica Explained. Now, it's been a year since my last one, pretty much, so it's been quite a long time. Now, these videos have some of the best like to dislike ratios on the channel, all of them currently being at well over 1,000 likes. I'm not expecting those kind of numbers for this video, but let's try and aim for 400 likes. So if you're watching this now and you do go on to enjoy the video, please leave a like and we'll see if we can break any more channel records. As you may or may not know, recently the developers of Subnautica decided to directly create a link between the universes of Subnautica and one of their other series, Natural Selection. They did this by changing the name of the deadly bacterium in Subnautica from Kharaa with a C to Kharaa with a K. This may not seem significant to anyone that doesn't already follow natural selection law, and up until this point neither did I, so don't worry if you don't know anything about it. I'll explain it as well as I possibly can. There are many theories as to where the Kharaa came from and whether Subnautica took place before or after the events of natural selection, but today I'm going to give you my own. I see this as the most likely theory, but obviously if you disagree with anything I encourage you to go down into the comments and give me your thoughts on it along with your own theories. According to the TransGov profile Alterra Corporation PDA data download, which can be found in the crashed Aurora, Alterra is the official supplier of the TSF. The TSF stands for the Trans System Federation, which is obviously mentioned in Subnautica, but features heavily in Natural Selection. As a human in Natural Selection, you play as a soldier of an elite marine force, which was created and funded by the TSF, called Frontiersmen, with the slogan of standing on the edge of the unknown, between all of humanity and whatever would threaten it. If you'd like more explanation videos on the TSF itself, the Charter, Alterra, or any of the other TransGov corporations, such as the Mongolian independent states, the interesting part of the Frontiersmen to do with Subnautica is that the weapons used by them to fight the Kharaa were provided by Alterra Corporation, the same company that contracted the Aurora, and whose logo is visible on many in-game items, and is also mentioned many times in PDA logs. While this confirms that Subnautica and Natural Selection do indeed share the same universe, it also raises questions as to the timing of the incredibly serious breakout of the deadly Kharaa bacterium seen in Natural Selection in relation to the relatively less serious but still deadly Kharaa bacterium shown in Subnautica. The enemy of the Frontiersmen are simply referred to as the Kharaa, the product of a previously unknown bacteria-like growth that rapidly evolves and is responsible for the evolution and aggressive behaviour of the Kharaa lifeforms. A common misconception may be that the Kharaa lifeforms are a direct result of the Kharaa bacterium itself, but in fact the creatures that the Kharaa has at its disposal were previously not associated with the bacterium whatsoever, meaning that they were a separate species that were infested with the bacterium and incorporated into the Kharaa gene pool. The fact that these lifeforms were once a separate species to the Kharaa does help with explaining the existence of the Gorge toy Easter egg found in Subnautica, in that perhaps these creatures were known of to humans before they were overtaken by the bacterium, and therefore that is why there are Gorge toys in existence. This helps my theory that Subnautica takes place at least a decade before the events of Natural Selection, and is therefore a prequel. Firstly, let's look at the similarities between the two instances of the Kharaa. Firstly, the most obvious similarity is the symptoms of hosting the bacterium in your body. In Subnautica, the main symptom is green, glowing cysts on the hand of the player and on the skin of other creatures throughout the world. As the symptoms worsen, the cysts grow more brightly and grow. Now, when you look at the symptoms of the Kharaa in Natural Selection, they're bright orange pulsating cysts that develop when the bacterium spreads along the floor. And in fact, the hive, also known as the command center for the Kharaa team, is basically just a massive pulsating orange cyst. The fact that the size of these cysts in Natural Selection are so massive and advanced compared to the cysts in Subnautica is another suggestion that Natural Selection's Kharaa is a well-evolved version of the Kharaa found in Subnautica. Secondly, another huge suggestion that both instances of the disease are directly related is the apparent location of the first discovery of these aliens infected with the Kharaa bacterium. According to the official Unknown Worlds Natural Selection website, the Kharaa was first discovered by a TSF team located in the starfields called the Steppes in the Mongolian cluster, which is located just outside of the settled end of the Ariadne Arm. As we know, Subnautica takes place on planet 4546b, which is located in a remote part of the Ariadne Arm, which explains the lack of rescue opportunities and the time it would take for an Alterra rescue ship to arrive. The fact that it was discovered in the same cluster of solar systems makes it entirely possible that the disease could spread to that area, especially considering how fast it evolved and mutated. Furthermore, according to the Kharaa contagion profile, its bacterial mechanisms are that it attaches to healthy living cells and mutates the basic genetic structure. It then goes on to say that stage 3 symptoms of the bacterium include unpredictable alterations to biological and genetic structure. If we take into account the probable long time frame between the events of Subnautica and Natural Selection, this gives the bacterium plenty of time to mutate and evolve into something far more serious. In Subnautica, the alterations to biological structure aren't noticeable other than cysts, However, in natural selection, the alterations to biological structure are actually the weapons that they use to fight the humans. For example, skulks and fades evolved razor-sharp blades after regular reproduction to get to the point where they can fight against the frontiersmen. The idea that these weapons have actually been developed and evolved to be part of the structure of the infected lifeform suggests it is a far more advanced and mutated strand of Kharaa, where the mutations to the basic genetic and biological structure are far more serious than shown in Subnautica. So this is where it gets pretty interesting in my opinion. It turns out that many of the structures used by the Kharaa in natural selection in general tend to resemble aquatic forms of life, contrary to the Kharaa lifeforms that clearly originated from mammals and other similar creatures. Now, when you look at these structures, some of them strike an astounding resemblance to aquatic lifeforms, and in particular, one of them looks very similar to a creature you can actually encounter in Subnautica, just heavily evolved. This is the Hydra, a small turret that detects marine presence and shoots spikes at frontiersman units and structures. Does this sound familiar at all to you? The tiger plant is a hazardous flora species in Subnautica, generally found in the grassy plateaus and on the back of reef backs. When the tiger plant sees a target such as a player, it launches a rapid series of semi-homing spikes towards the target. I'm not suggesting that hydras are direct relatives of the tiger plant, as at the time that Subnautica takes place, Kharaa only affects fauna, not flora, but it's certainly possible that an evolved Kharaa could mutate these type of flora into having their speciality being aiming for and shooting at humans. Now, if you look at some of the other structures used by the Kharaa, such as the cocoon and the drifter, you can certainly see the similarity they have with many aquatic lifeforms, especially the cocoon. However, rather than swimming, these lifeforms can fly, which is another evolutionary step. My personal favourite, however, is the babbler. It bears a striking resemblance to the bleeder in Subnautica with the 4 limbs on the front, and also has similar qualities. When regurgitated by a gorge, babbler eggs quickly grow and hatch into 3 babblers. They're pretty simple-minded, so the gorge developed a special pheromone called a babbler bait to attract and direct them. When higher Kharaa lifeforms are covered in the pheromone, they will cling onto a lifeform and cling tightly until the pheromone appears somewhere else. This shares some resemblance to the bleeder, which latches onto the arm of the player to suck blood, but in natural selection it has almost been repurposed, not to suck blood, but to prolong the life of the creature they're latched onto by absorbing damage. Again, this suggests years and years of evolution and mutation after the events of Subnautica. So now I've tried to prove to you why I think Subnautica is in fact a prequel to natural selection by quite some time. I'm now going to offer some theories as to how the Kharaa spread off the planet into the area where it was discovered by a TSF team. I think that the billions of lives lost in the wars that take place in natural selection are all the fault of the player. It may seem harsh, but think about it. You're stranded on a planet infected with a bacterium that will definitely kill you at some point, that no one else has ever managed to escape from since the quarantine was put in place by the precursors. These precursors are seemingly thousands of years ahead of humans in their technological capabilities, even 1,000 years before the Aurora crashed. So it's most likely that they knew what they were doing and were pretty smart things. By building the gun, they had ensured that if there were to be an outbreak on 4546b of the Kharaa, as there was, it couldn't possibly get off the planet because nothing could possibly enter or leave. When the player disables the gun, you disable the only thing keeping the bacterium on the planet, leaving it open to other humans to enter and leave as they wish, spreading the bacterium throughout the Ariadne arm. While this is possible, I think that it is possibly even more the fault of the player in that the Kharaa, in my opinion, was actually spread to the rest of the Ariadne arm by the player alone. It's possible that the Kharaa evolved to become airborne and was in fact just lurking in the cockpit as the player took off. It's also possible that some uncured critter found its way onto the rocket and is hiding in a storage bay. The player may be cured, but that doesn't mean that the bacterium has been completely eradicated. Generally, in the real world, a cure or antibacteria product will kill 99.9% of all the bacteria there. But there's, for a variety of reasons, a very tiny fraction of the bacteria that is resistant to the cure. This means that it is possible that there was some strand of the Kharaa which was resistant to enzyme 42 and its cure. This could explain the spread. So, overall, I believe that Subnautica occurred many years before the events leading to the Wars of Natural Selection 1 and 2, and that the player was single-handedly, unknowingly, the cause of the whole thing. Well, there you go guys, I hope you enjoyed the video and that it wasn't too confusing. If you don't understand something, please ask me or someone else in the comments below, and I'll try my best to explain it to you. As I said before, if you disagree with anything I said, please tell me about it in the comments below, and why you think I'm wrong, and what your own theory is. If you liked it, please give it a like, and if you're feeling really generous, subscribe to MacLeod David. Until next one, I'll see you guys in the next one. Ta-ra, my friends.